The first time anyone noticed Ava's gift, she was only 4 years old. It happened on a rainy afternoon when her mother, Clara, sat by the kitchen table, frustrated over bills and deadlines. Ava, with her wild chestnut curls and curious eyes, toddled over, looked at the mess of papers, and quietly said, asterisk, "You don't need to worry about this one, Mommy. It's already paid." Asterisk. Clara blinked, startled. "What do you mean, sweetie?" she asked, brushing a damp curl from her daughter's forehead. Ava just shrugged and went back to her coloring book, humming to herself. Later that evening, when Clara checked her banking app out of sheer curiosity, she saw it. A payment had been processed earlier that day, one she swore she hadn't made yet. It was the first flicker of something unusual, though she brushed it off as coincidence. But coincidences kept piling up. At preschool, Ava finished puzzles meant for 8-year-olds within minutes. During story time, she'd whisper the ending of books the teacher had never read aloud before. If another child cried, Ava seemed to know exactly what to say to calm them down, sometimes even before the tears fell. Her father, Nathan, found it endearing at first. "She's just sharp like her mom," he'd joke, ruffling her hair. But the night Ava woke them up, trembling and pale, was when everything changed. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging at the edge of his blanket, "you have to call Grandpa. His heart is hurting." Nathan sat up, heart pounding. His father lived 2 towns over and had always been in good health. But Ava's eyes, wide, honest, and scared, made him reach for the phone without argument. When his father picked up, his voice was strained. "Son, I was just about to call an ambulance. Something's not right." The hospital confirmed it the next day, an early-stage heart attack, caught just in time. The doctors said if he'd waited even another hour, the outcome could have been tragic. Nathan didn't know whether to feel grateful or unnerved. Word spread quietly among family and close friends. Some brushed it off as a child's intuition. Others, like Ava's grandmother, murmured about the gift that supposedly ran in their bloodline, though it hadn't surfaced in generations. Ava herself seemed oblivious, more concerned with her stuffed bunny, Mr. Whiskers, than any talk of being special. But as the months passed, Ava's insights grew sharper, and her parents' unease deepened. It wasn't just about predicting small things anymore, like rain showers or surprise visitors. She started speaking about people's emotions as though she could see them, like colors in the air. "Miss Riley is sad," she said one morning, pointing at her preschool teacher. "Her heart feels like purple clouds." Clara mentioned it to Miss Riley during pickup, half expecting an awkward laugh. Instead, the teacher's face crumpled. Her mother had been diagnosed with cancer the day before, and she'd done everything to mask her pain at work. That night, after Ava drifted to sleep, Clara and Nathan sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where it had all begun. "This isn't normal," Nathan muttered, running a hand through his hair. Do we get her tested? Talk to someone." Clara hesitated. "Tested for what?" "It's not like she's sick. She's just different." "Different can be dangerous," he countered quietly. Neither of them noticed Ava standing in the hallway, Mr. Whiskers clutched to her chest. She didn't understand everything they said, but one thing was clear: her parents were worried about her gift. And deep down, Ava was starting to worry too. Because the dreams had begun, dreams of things that hadn't happened yet. And not all of them were good. The dreams started gently at first, like faded memories whispered into Ava's ear while she slept. She would wake up, blinking in the soft morning light, and casually mention them during breakfast. "Uncle Ray is bringing me a teddy bear today," she chirped one morning, swinging her legs under the table. Clara, half awake as she stirred her coffee, barely registered the words. Uncle Ray lived out of state and hadn't mentioned visiting. But that afternoon, the doorbell rang, and there he stood, suitcase in one hand and a brown teddy bear with a red bow in the other. "I had a layover nearby and figured I'd surprise you guys," he grinned, unaware of the stunned look Clara and Nathan exchanged over Ava's head. At first, it felt harmless, even charming. Ava's dreams predicted lost items, surprise visitors, and little moments that made life easier. She told her mother when it would rain, so they never forgot an umbrella. She warned Nathan about a flat tire before he left for work, saving him from being stranded on the highway. But then the dreams darkened. One night, Ava bolted upright in bed, gasping for air. Clara rushed in, heart pounding. "Baby, what is it?" she asked, brushing damp hair from Ava's flushed forehead. Ava's lower lip quivered. "Miss Riley," she whispered. She's on the ground. There's glass. And the lights are flashing. Mommy, she's crying for help." Clara's stomach twisted. It was nearly midnight. What could she do? But Ava's wide, terrified eyes left no room for doubt. Without thinking, Clara grabbed her phone and called Miss Riley. The teacher answered after several rings, her voice shaky. "Clara? Oh my God. How did you know?" "I just had a car accident. I'm okay, but I'm stuck and my phone's almost dead. I was about to hang up and try 911 again." Clara barely heard the rest of the conversation. Her hands trembled as she hung up and turned to Ava, who sat hugging her knees, face pale. "I didn't want to know," Ava murmured. "I don't like the bad dreams, Mommy." Nathan was less calm when he heard. He paced the living room, phone in hand, pulling up articles on child prodigies, psychic phenomena, even rare neurological conditions. "This isn't safe," he muttered. "What if this affects her mind? Or her health? We need help." But who could help? A therapist? A doctor? A scientist? The options felt ridiculous. Ava wasn't sick. She was different. The following week, the dreams became relentless. She spoke of a neighbor's dog getting loose. Hours before Mrs. Patel knocked, frantic, asking if they'd seen her golden retriever. She whispered about a fire at the grocery store. 2 days later, a small electrical fire shut the place down for repairs. And then came the dream about the bridge. "Daddy, don't go to work tomorrow," Ava said quietly during dinner. Nathan frowned, setting down his fork. "Why not, sweetheart?" Ava's eyes filled with tears. "The bridge. It's going to break. There'll be water everywhere." Clara froze. Nathan sighed, rubbing his face. "Honey, that bridge is brand new. They rebuilt it last year. It's safer than." "Asterisk, please, asterisk," Ava cried, voice shrill. "Don't go." Silence fell over the table. Nathan glanced at Clara, worry etched into every line of his face. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, Peanut. I'll work from home tomorrow. Just to make you feel better." The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows and Nathan typed away on his laptop, his phone buzzed. A breaking news alert. Asterisk partial bridge collapse halts traffic. Structural fault under investigation. No fatalities reported. Asterisk. Nathan stared at the screen, mouth dry. The time of the collapse? 8:17 a.m., the exact time he would have been crossing. He walked slowly to the living room, where Ava sat quietly, coloring. She looked up at him, eyes heavy with something far too old for a child. "I didn't want you to get hurt," she whispered. That night, Clara cried silently in the bathroom while Nathan sat on the edge of Ava's bed, holding her tiny hand in his. "Does it hurt, baby?" he asked softly. "Seeing all these things?" Ava nodded. "Sometimes my head feels full. And my heart feels heavy." Nathan kissed her forehead. "We'll figure this out. I promise." But deep down, neither he nor Clara knew what figuring it out even meant. Because if the dreams were getting stronger, what would Ava see next? And worse, what if, one day, she saw something they couldn't stop? The nightmares started soon after the bridge incident. They weren't like the usual dreams, those fleeting glimpses of small events Ava had come to expect. These were vivid, dark, and heavy, like she was being pulled into someone else's reality, forced to witness things she couldn't change. One night, Ava woke up screaming, her voice raw and panicked. Clara and Nathan burst into her room, finding her curled up in the corner, arms wrapped around Mr. Whiskers. Asterisk, no, 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 asterisk, she sobbed. "The boy in the red jacket. He's under the water. Nobody sees him." Nathan scooped her up, heart pounding. "Baby, it's okay. It's just a bad dream." But Ava shook her head fiercely. "It's real, Daddy. It's real right now. Clara's gaze met Nathan's, and without another word, she grabbed her phone and called the police. It felt ridiculous, explaining her daughter's dream to a skeptical dispatcher, but the sheer terror in Ava's voice left no room for doubt. "Look," Clara said, voice trembling, "you can think I'm crazy, but please, just have someone check the river near Pinewood Park." She said the boys near the third dock. The dispatcher hesitated, then sighed. "I'll send someone to take a look." 30 minutes later, their home phone rang. Nathan answered, expecting an apology for the false alarm. Instead, the officer's voice was tight. "Sir, we found him. A 7-year-old boy, unconscious but breathing, caught under a broken part of the dock." "If you hadn't called," the officer trailed off, the implication clear. Nathan sank into the couch, hand over his mouth. Ava sat nearby, knees pulled to her chest. "I didn't want to see that," she whispered. "It was so cold. And he was so scared." That was the turning point. Clara, no longer able to brush things off as intuition, started researching in earnest. Not just child prodigies or psychological conditions, but historical cases of children with unexplained gifts. Stories of seers, empaths, and precognitive dreams. Most were ancient anecdotes or sensationalized accounts, but a few led her to modern forums, small communities of parents discussing children with heightened perception. One name kept appearing: Dr. Evelyn Roshan, a neuropsychologist specializing in anomalous cognition. After days of hesitation, Clara made the call. Dr. Roshan listened patiently as Clara described everything, from the first harmless predictions to the nightmares. "I believe you," the doctor said quietly. "I've worked with children like Ava before. It's rare, but it happens. Their brains are wired differently, processing sensory input and subconscious information at an extraordinary level." But she paused. "It's not just about the brain. It's about energy, emotional, environmental, even social. These children don't just see things. They feel them. And if Ava is dreaming about dangers before they happen, it means her mind is picking up on disturbances around her, like ripples in water before a stone hits the surface." Clara's throat tightened. Can it hurt her? This gift. There was a long silence. "It can overwhelm her," Dr. Roshan admitted. "Children like Ava are sensitive. If they aren't taught how to manage the influx of information, it can lead to anxiety, exhaustion, even physical symptoms like headaches or fatigue. But with guidance, she can learn to filter what she sees, to focus on what matters and protect herself from the rest." A week later, they drove to Dr. Roshan's small, serene clinic on the outskirts of the city. The office was nothing like a hospital: soft lighting, shelves of children's books, and a wall covered in calming nature murals. Ava, usually shy around strangers, seemed immediately at ease with Dr. Roshan. "Do you know why you're here, Ava?" the doctor asked gently. Ava nodded, gripping Mr. Whiskers. "To make the bad dreams stop. And the noisy feelings." Dr. Roshan smiled. "That's right. But we're not going to make your gift go away, because it's part of what makes you special. We're just going to teach you how to turn down the volume when it gets too loud." The sessions were slow but steady. Dr. Roshan introduced Ava to simple mindfulness techniques, breathing exercises, visualization, and grounding practices. They played games that taught her how to distinguish between ordinary thoughts and the ripples that signaled something more. "Imagine your mind is a big lake," Dr. Roshan explained during one session. "Most days, the water is calm, and you can see everything clearly. But when the wind picks up, when the world gets noisy, waves form, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's just a splash. Your job is to calm the water." Ava took to the techniques with surprising ease. Within weeks, the nightmares eased. The random, chaotic glimpses of the future became less frequent, and when they did come, Ava was able to talk about them without panic. But the real test came one rainy afternoon when Clara picked Ava up from school. They were halfway home when Ava suddenly sat bolt upright in the back seat. "Mommy, stop. Now." Clara slammed on the brakes, heart in her throat. At that exact moment, a speeding truck ran the red light at the intersection ahead, barreling through the crosswalk where they would have been seconds later. Clara gripped the steering wheel, chest heaving. When she looked back, Ava was pale but calm, her small hands folded in her lap. "I saw the ripples," she murmured. "But I knew what to do this time." That night, Clara and Nathan tucked Ava into bed with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The gift wasn't gone, but now it was something their daughter could live with, not something that controlled her life. As they kissed her goodnight and turned off the light, Ava whispered into the darkness, "Thank you, Mr. Whiskers. We did good today." The stuffed bunny sat quietly beside her, one button eye glinting softly in the moonlight. As the months passed, Ava's life began to feel almost normal. The nightmares faded into rare occurrences, and when the dreams did come, Ava could usually make sense of them. With Dr. Roshan's guidance, she learned to distinguish between fleeting thoughts, anxious worries, and true premonitions, the ripples, as they called them. But the real change was in Ava herself. She smiled more, laughed freely. Her teachers at school noted how she seemed more focused, less distracted by invisible worries. Even her artwork transformed, from dark, jagged lines to bright, colorful landscapes filled with sunshine, flowers, and playful animals. Yet, there was one dream Ava never spoke about. It began subtly, a shadow at the edge of her dreams, standing quietly, watching. It never moved, never spoke, but Ava could feel its presence. Unlike the other dreams, this one didn't fade with the morning light. It lingered, like the taste of something bitter. One evening, as Clara braided Ava's hair before bed, she noticed her daughter's unusually quiet demeanor. "Penny for your thoughts, sweetheart?" Clara asked softly. Ava hesitated, then whispered, "There's a man in my dreams. He doesn't do anything, just stands there, watching." Clara froze, fingers stilling in Ava's hair. "Have you told Dr. Roshan?" Ava nodded. "She says sometimes dreams are just dreams. But this feels different, like he's waiting for something." The air felt colder somehow, despite the warmth of the room. "Do you feel scared when you see him?" Clara asked. Ava shook her head slowly. "Not scared, just worried. Like he's sad. Like he wants me to know something." Nathan, ever the pragmatist, dismissed it as Ava's imagination. "She's been through so much. It's probably just her mind processing everything." But Clara couldn't shake the unease. Ava's dreams had never been random. Why would this be any different? A week later, the shadow dream escalated. Ava woke up crying, something she hadn't done in months. "He's closer now," she sobbed. And he pointed at the calendar. March 14th. He kept pointing at it, over and over. Clara's heart pounded. March 14th was only 3 days away. Unable to ignore the warning, Clara called Dr. Roshan the next morning. The doctor listened carefully, then said, "Mark the date, but don't panic. Sometimes the mind fixates on arbitrary symbols. Keep Ava calm and reassured. If something happens, you'll be prepared." The next 2 days passed without incident. Ava, though watchful, seemed calmer, as if sharing the dream had lessened its weight. Then March 14th arrived. That morning, the world seemed unnaturally quiet. The sky hung low and gray, and the usual bustle of the neighborhood felt muted. Nathan kissed Ava goodbye as she headed to school, promising to pick her up early for an ice cream treat. Just because. Clara went about her day, nerves taut, jumping at every phone notification. Noon came and went without issue. It wasn't until 2:17 p.m. that everything shifted. Clara was at the grocery store when her phone buzzed. Severe weather alert, tornado warning. Her stomach plummeted. Tornadoes were rare in their area, but not impossible. Her first instinct was Ava. Without a second thought, she abandoned her cart and sprinted to the car, dialing the school as she ran. "Pickup lines are moving fast," the receptionist assured her. "We're monitoring the weather closely. The kids are safe." Safe. Clara gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. But Ava's dreams were never just warnings. They were instructions. Clara broke every speed limit on the way to the school. The sky darkened rapidly, the air thick and electric. As she pulled into the school's circular driveway, her phone rang. It was Ava. "Mommy." Ava's voice was high-pitched with urgency. "The man." He was pointing at the east doors. "We have to go there. Now." Clara didn't think, she acted. Leaving the car running, she sprinted toward the east side of the building, heart pounding in her ears. And there was Ava, standing outside with Miss Parker, her homeroom teacher, who looked confused and concerned. Ava ran out of the classroom, saying, "You were here," Miss Parker said, gripping Ava's shoulder. "I was about to bring her back in." The roar came first, a deep, thunderous rumble that shook the ground. Clara barely had time to react before the air pressure shifted and the sky seemed to twist above them. Tornado. It wasn't large, not the kind that tore entire neighborhoods apart, but it was fast and brutal, ripping across the field behind the school. And it was headed straight for the west side of the building, the side where the children were still being loaded into buses. Clara didn't think. "Asterisk, get down, asterisk," she screamed, pulling Ava and Miss Parker into the recessed doorway of the east entrance. The wind shrieked past them, debris flying like shrapnel. A distant crash echoed through the air, part of the school's gym roof, caving under the pressure. Then, as suddenly as it began, the tornado lifted, dissipating into the gray sky like smoke. Silence. Shaking, Clara crawled out from the doorway, pulling Ava close. Sirens blared in the distance as first responders raced toward the school. But Ava wasn't looking at the damage. She was staring at the empty field where the tornado had first touched down. "He's gone," she whispered. Clara followed her gaze. "Who, baby?"
"The man. He smiled at me."
Like he was saying goodbye. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. Ava had saved lives that day. The children in the West Wing had been evacuated moments before the tornado hit, thanks to the school's quick action. Miss Parker later admitted she had only followed Ava outside because something about the little girl's certainty had felt undeniable. The news called it a miraculous near-miss. But for Clara, the miracle wasn't just survival. It was the realization that Ava's gift, her burden, had become her strength. That night, as Clara tucked Ava into bed, she kissed her forehead and whispered, "You're the bravest girl I know." Ava smiled sleepily, hugging Mr. Whiskers tight. "Not brave, Mommy. Just listening to the ripples." And for the first time in a long while, Ava slept peacefully, dreaming not of warnings, but of calm waters and clear skies.